All right. Welcome to another All Things Real Estate, and we're joined once again by the lovely Sophia D. Bryan Esquire, managing attorney at law at the Law Boss firm based here in Kingston. This is one of our favorite features, by the way. Like, I know, like, we're so excited, right, about this feature. We absolutely do love it, and we're diving into a topic that more and more homeowners are curious about: trusts. I'm not talking good to trust a shop. You understand? So you've probably heard the term, but what does it really mean to put your home in a trust? Is it just for the wealthy, or is it a smart move for everyday families? Yes, welcome back to the show.
Welcome, Sophia.
I'm so glad to be here.
You know, same in that color, Sophia.
Safa.
No, hey.
Safa. Safa D. Bryan.
All right, so let's get into it right now. What exactly is a trust, and how is it different from a will?
Love this question. I'm happy to bring the topic because I actually have a series of videos on my social media platform that have pretty much blown up. And so I decided to bring this up again another time.
Yeah.
So a trust is essentially a entity that you can hold your assets in. So it facilitates asset protection. It's different from a will in that a will is just something that says, these are the things I own, these are the people that I want to get it. You assign an executor and they carry out your wishes. Whereas with the trust, whether you're here or not, the entity still survives and your assets are still protected, and you set up guardrails for how your assets are going to be managed.
So what are we protecting our assets from? Like, who we're protecting them from?
People, your family.
All right. So the great thing about a trust is that because of the level of discretion that it allows for, so nobody's going to know your business. You're going to have a high level of privacy. You appoint a trustee and they're the ones that carry out your wishes. So the possibility of being sued, if people know that you have a lot more than you disclose publicly, then that can possibly make you a target. And so the discretion that comes with having a trust protects you from that.
Because then I was going to ask, can putting a home in a trust really protect it from probate or legal challenges? So again, I own 2 homes in St. Elizabeth. I mean, I really want nobody to know about it at all. And they're in a trust. So then, what if someone is suing me for whatever financial reason, $60 million, and I only have 20? So in that regard, will the trust then come into play, or will the homes be coming into play, or because they're in a trust?
Can we trust the trust?
Can we trust the trust that the people them just not gonna find out about it?
I love that. Love this line of argument. So the good thing about a trust is that you appoint trustees. So you don't have to be mentioned, none at all. And so it's something that is separate from you. So the houses in St. Elizabeth, you can appoint an attorney, you can appoint a family member to be the trustees, and you can indicate who you want the beneficiaries to be. So you don't need to be a beneficiary, you could possibly be one. And so that's how it is protected from creditors. So it's a separate legal entity. So unless you are a beneficiary and then people want to come after what you own as a beneficiary, it would be subjected to whatever guardrails are in the trust. So for example, if you are an adult and the term said that, okay, you have to go to college before you have access to the money or any of the proceeds from the property or rental income, then regardless of if you're being sued or not, you just don't have access to the money. You just don't have access to these assets, right? And then because we don't necessarily have somewhere where people can go and search to see, the list of trusts that exist in Jamaica, that's that layer of protection as well. So nobody's going to know your business unless you tell them.
Well, true.
Essentially.
Because I was just going to say, I don't know anybody that's got a trust. But then maybe they're not walking around telling people that they have a trust, right?
Exactly.
But trust just sounds wealthy. It just sounds rich. It sounds opulent. Let's talk about some of the biggest misconceptions that people have about trusts.
Right. So aside from the fact that you have to be extremely wealthy to get a trust, people think that it's very expensive to acquire one. Right? And what I say is that if your assets ever have to go through probate, the legal fees and the taxes that are going to be paid far outweigh whatever you'll have to pay to set up your trust. So you have to contemplate what you'll pay your trustees, unless it's family members, and you have to factor in what the cost is to carry out any of the terms that are set out in the trust. But it far outweighs the benefits, far outweighs what you'll ever pay if your assets end up into probate.
Okay.
So then how can then yeah?
Yeah. So we'll just take this quick break.
Okay, so then how can a trust then help parents control what happens to the property after they've passed?
Right. So a trust allows for control from the grave, essentially. So your trustee, the person that's carrying out your wishes, they have some obligations and they have to follow whatever terms. So you can put guardrails in there to say, my child needs to get a certain type of skill set. They need to be a certain age before they can have access to my money, or before they can spend anything. Because yes, you become an adult when you're 18, but can an adult, 18-year-old manage a $50 million property? Or can they manage an investment portfolio? No, they can't. That's where a trustee would come into play.
Yeah.
And so if you are concerned about whether or not they'll squander what you have, or what you've provided for them, that's where the trustee comes into play. And if you're wondering, you're concerned that, well, what if my son, is a womanizer and I have to worry about him getting married 5 times. Will my assets be subjected to every time he gets a divorce? Well, the wonderful thing is you have the guardrail set up in the trust to say the money can only be used for XYZ, so you don't have to worry about other people having access to the assets.
Wow. That's a sure way to ensure the wife gets nothing much. But when we're thinking of a trust, right, I can imagine that people probably are thinking, when would I need a trust? When is a good time for me to say, hey, let me get a trust? Would I ever need a trust?
As soon as you have something of value. The reality is, I love this illustration. So imagine somebody giving you a gift box. The gift box isn't worth anything until you put something in there, right? And so as soon as you have something of value, whether it's property, whether you're building up your investment portfolio, you're dabbling into stocks and you've amassed something, it's important to have some sort of guardrails in place to protect it from creditors and to make sure that your people are okay if anything were to happen to you. So the right time is when you start making moves.
Right. Owning things, owning estate and so on.
Yeah, so the moment you think about purchasing a property, that's when you should be thinking about, who do I want my trustees to be? Am I going to be compensating them? Will I be the trustee? You start having those conversations and you seek the advice of professionals as soon as you're at that moment.
Yeah. Because I just want to say that obviously this is how the wealthy keep generational wealth going in their family. You know what I mean? New money people generally don't think about these things. And so they end up sometimes losing, especially, you know what I mean? Especially artists, people who are coming to maybe money that they didn't expect to get, and they just suddenly just get up and rich.
Yeah.
You understand? So you really have to be thinking wise, guys, when
and
you
we have
start
a lot
acquiring.
of examples of that. We have, from the legends like Prince,
Yes.
Aretha Franklin, even Michael Jackson. He had a will, but there was a lot of confusion about how his music rights were to be distributed. So it is not just the new money people then, so to speak, right? Everybody can benefit from having a conversation. And the reality is, for people to get this kind of support, oftentimes you're not approached or it's not suggested until you have a lot of money. And people tend to have to go outside of the jurisdiction. So which is why I'm spreading the awareness here. We do have a Trust Act from 2019. And it is there for us to utilize regardless of our income bracket.
Wow, 2019.
Well, obviously, you've been in this industry now for a while, right?
Yeah.
And just thinking about it, like, I have so many questions, by the way. But one of the questions that are screaming at me right now, it's, the conversation or the arguments that would come after someone passes. So, be it a will, be it a trust, right? What if it is now that say for argument's sake, Honeybee has 10 children, Honeybee passes.
Serious? Wow.
Yeah. And then when Honeybee passes, no, the kids are now saying, but that's not, just based on my knowledge, what I know was in the trust or on the will. And then the trustees, they can also get something from it. So they're now, trying to challenge how valid or how truthful is this trust, or what can they do to then ensure that this is 100% valid, this is 100% true. Again, property right talk about, everybody go and fight for things. What can they do in that regard?
Right. So it's good to demonstrate that you were of a sound mind when you're doing anything related to estate planning, especially if you are of a certain age. You want it to be clear that, okay, on this date, before I did, I met with my attorney, I visited my doctor, and I have a clean bill of health. If there are any medications, it's clear that the medications don't have anything to do with my mental health, for instance. Right. There are also guardrails in our laws in terms of if a trustee commits any type of fraud. So if a trustee commits any type of fraud, as you can imagine, we're looking at jail time possibly or paying a fine. But the good thing is that doesn't affect the integrity of the trust itself.
Yes.
So if you're wondering that, okay, if the trustee is not acting in good faith, what becomes of the assets? The trust is still valid. And if there are minor children, then the government can step in, or one of the beneficiaries can make an application to the court to say, our trustee is not acting in good faith. Can somebody be appointed? Can an enforcer be appointed? So there are those guardrails in our law. But the most important thing is to demonstrate sound mind and to make provisions if somebody is not acting in good faith. Those things can be factored into
the trust. Wow, you really have to take everything into account. And we talk about being of sound mind, and that's very important, right? So what if someone, before they pass, becomes mentally incapacitated? They have a trust, right? But before they pass, they become mentally incapacitated. And so, once again, perhaps people are wondering, okay, did they perhaps made any changes to the trust? Can we trust what we're seeing? Yeah, so
usually persons when they get to a certain age, they have medical care in place, and so it's important to have a good relationship with a family doctor and to produce the medical records if needs be, because it does happen. I know of instances where things were put in place and then the person, needed to go on medication, and then the validity was challenged. But all the sequence of events, you could see that they were okay when they did it. Their signature was, coherent.
Right.
People could say that, well, this is in keeping with, what their wishes were at the time. But it boils down to what their medical records say at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And the trustee, in their capacity of, as a protector of the assets, they can make those types of requests or get a court order if needs be.
Yeah. All right. So just for clarity, because obviously I know what the answer is going to be to this, but can someone put property rental or investment real estate into a trust?
Absolutely. And then you can dictate how you want the revenue from that to be managed or distributed. So you can say, okay, I want the revenue from my rental income to go into X bank account or to X investment account, and nobody can have access to it except for repairs or to pay for education, not to pay somebody to go on vacation or some, things of that sort. So you absolutely. And another savvy way to manage investment related real estate is to consider having a limited liability company in place so that all of the revenue can, be dedicated to a particular account. So that's a good thing about, we have so many options that you can explore.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Let's talk about the trustee, right? I mean, listen, this person here has a very massive role.
Yes.
And so choosing the right one is integral. How do you go about that? How do you choose the right trustee that you can trust beyond the grave? And do you have professional trustees?
Yes. So our laws currently state that for a trust to be valid, you should have at least 2 trustees, right? However, if you only have one, it doesn't invalidate the thing, right?
Okay.
So you need to have two, and you want to ensure that these people are honest, truthful, filled with integrity. They cannot be bullied by your family members.
Or bought.
Or bought. You know, they're going to do things in the best interest of your family or whomever the beneficiaries are. And yes, there are professional entities, trust and corporate service providers that offer the service to act as a trustee. And of course, they're held at an extremely high standard in terms of how things ought to be managed. That it is a job. And so if you don't necessarily want to, cough up money for that, it's good to look at family members who you have a solid relationship with. But I do understand that one of the main reasons why people want to explore a trust is because of the discretion, and they don't want to have that conflict among siblings or among loved ones. Of course, and a law firm
Yes.
like the one I manage can
Law boss.
support persons who want assistance with somebody acting as a trustee on
Yes.
behalf of their trust. Yeah.
Because then someone on YouTube, Petrina Henry, was asking, can the trustee breach the trust?
Yes.
Good question,
So
Katrina.
so the beneficiaries need to be on guard as well, right? So
Yeah.
it's important for them to know what the assets in the trust are, and they too can be in the know. So yes, discretion, but you need to tell the beneficiaries that, hey, I have this thing in place. This is what, maybe they can get a copy of the trust deed itself, or you can just indicate to them what you wanted to happen. And so they can be at an extra layer of protection, because if they suspect that there's anything untoward,
Yeah.
then they can make an application to the court, bring charges if needs be. So the trustee doesn't just have free reign to do whatever they feel like, 'cause we can have the general clause to say whatever is in the best interest of the beneficiaries there. But you can't, it's not a free for all. You
Yeah.
can just do what you feel like.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. And finally, okay, so what happens to a trust if it is that the person migrates, them live abroad, all these things, but they still own property in Jamaica? What happens then?
Right. So the beautiful thing about trust relate, and when the real estate is in your trust, is that the National Land Agency gets a copy of that trust deed.
Okay.
So even if it's not gonna be necessarily obvious to the public, but if anybody were to try and sell it, then it would be like, oh, this property is actually in a trust. So regardless of whether or not the beneficiaries are active or whether the trustee is active, the trust still takes effect and nobody can do anything. So it's not one of those things that's going to turn over to the government. You know,
Yeah.
like if you just have something in a bank account, it sits there and then it
Yes.
goes in. No. It will stay there until somebody valid or legitimate appears and
Yes.
takes control of it.
I love that.
Okay.
I love that for the trust.
Wonderful. Wonderful. You gotta trust your trust, guys.
Gotta trust your trust.
Get yourself a trust. Thank you so much, Sophia.
It's a pleasure, guys.
Yes. Very informative as usual. Tell the people where they can find Law Boss Firm.
Yes, www.thelawbossfirm.com. Go to the website, book a consultation, and somebody will respond to you within 24 hours.
Right, you're
to hear
that. That's it. Now, guys, that was Let's Talk Real Estate with Sophia Bryan Esquire, managing attorney at Law Boss Firm.